Have you ever watched a man dismantle his own dignity in real time? It is a painful, almost visceral experience. You see him trying. You see him giving everything he has, his time, his attention, his instant availability, believing that this total surrender is the currency of love. And yet, the more he gives, the more invisible he becomes. He tries everything, yet he fails miserably. Meanwhile, there is another man in the room. He says less, he offers less, he promises nothing, yet he commands the attention, the respect, and the desire that the first man is begging for. Why does this happen? Today, we are going to walk through an uncomfortable door. We are going to look at an experiment, a psychological reality that polite society prefers to bury. We're told from childhood that attraction is a negotiation of kindness, that if you are transparent and pleasing, you will be rewarded. But the human psyche does not operate on the laws of Disney movies. It operates on the ancient biological laws of power, perception, and scarcity. I'm going to strip away the politically correct veneer. This isn't about being toxic. It is about understanding the fundamental mechanics of human nature. If there is one thing I have learned from studying the dynamics of power, from the courts of history to modern psychology, it is this: desire follows hidden laws, not romantic expectations. And the most brutal law of all is that no one values what is free, unlimited, and desperate to be consumed. Today, we aren't talking about how to please. We are talking about how to exist as a man of such internal gravity that you do not need to chase. But before we go deeper, we must draw a sharp, non-negotiable line in the sand. We need to define the difference between a manipulator and a man of power. They may look identical on the surface, but their engines are running on different fuels. A manipulator uses silence, mystery, and withdrawal as a tactic. He is pretending to be busy because he is terrified of being seen as empty. He is playing a game because he lacks substance. That is weakness disguised as strategy. The man of true power, the man we are analyzing today, uses these same behaviors not as a trick, but as a byproduct of his reality. He isn't pretending to be busy. He has a purpose higher than the relationship. He isn't feigning silence to provoke anxiety. He simply does not feel the need to verbalize every fleeting thought. The manipulator acts out of a need for control. The sovereign man acts out of a need for self-respect. What we are exploring today is how to become the latter. Let's look at the first lesson, which originates in the courts of the Renaissance, but applies perfectly to your text messages today: the peril of total visibility. In the Florentine political dynamics I have studied, the courtier who was entirely predictable became a tool. He was useful, safe, and ultimately discarded. The prince who explained every decision, who sought the validation of his subjects, was viewed not as benevolent, but as weak. Why? Because the moment you are fully understood, you are fully mastered. In the realm of attraction, this dynamic is amplified. Most men believe that intimacy means a complete lack of boundaries, a total vomiting of the soul. They reveal their insecurities, their schedules, and their devotion immediately. They believe this creates closeness. In reality, it creates obligation, and obligation is the death of desire. When you hand over your entire world without limits, you signal that your world is small. You signal that your happiness is not self-generated, but dependent on external validation. And dependence, my friend, is the ultimate attraction killer. It triggers a primal repulsion. We are biologically wired to seek partners who are competent, autonomous, and capable of survival without us. When a man shows that he collapses without a woman's attention, he proves he is not a partner, but a dependent. This brings us to the concept of the open book.
We are taught that honesty is the highest virtue, but there is a difference between honesty and a lack of filter. A man who has no private world, who requires his partner to witness every thought and validate every emotion, is exhausting. He becomes a child asking for a mother, not a man offering a kingdom. The experiment, therefore, is to embrace the power of the unspoken. This is not about lying, it is about emotional containment. It is the understanding that you do not owe anyone the totality of your internal state. A man who keeps his own counsel, who reserves certain thoughts, who does not immediately react to every stimulus, becomes a magnet. Why? Because he represents a territory that is not yet conquered. Think about the most charismatic leaders or historical figures you know of. Did they broadcast their anxieties? Did they tweet every frustration? No. They maintained a strategic distance. They let you see the decision, but not the agonizing process behind it. In attraction, this translates to dignity. It means you have a rich inner life that you are inviting her into, but you are not handing her the keys to destroy it. This creates a vacuum, a space of uncertainty, and in that space, her imagination begins to work. She starts to wonder who you are, what you are thinking, and why you are so self-assured. Her investment in decoding you becomes the anchor of her attraction. This leads us directly to the mechanism of emotional scarcity. This is perhaps the most misunderstood concept in modern psychology. People hear scarcity and they think of starvation, of cruelty, of ignoring someone to make them feel bad. That is the immature interpretation. True emotional scarcity is simply the realization that your time and attention are finite resources. They are the most valuable things you possess. If you treat them as infinite, if you dispense them to anyone who asks at any time of day, you devalue them to zero. This is basic economics applied to the soul. If gold were as common as gravel, we would pave our driveways with it.
Consider the man who replies instantly to every message, regardless of what he is doing. He interrupts his work, his workout, his purpose, just to say, "I'm here." He thinks he is being attentive. What he is actually communicating is, "My mission is less important than your interruption." He is signaling that he has nothing better to do. Now contrast this with the man who is deeply engaged in a life of substance. He replies when he is free. He gives his full attention when he is present, but he is not omnipresent. This is not a game. He isn't staring at his phone, counting to 10 minutes to build tension. He is actually busy building a legacy. When this man withdraws his attention to focus on his purpose, it creates a vacuum. It creates a realization in the partner that his presence is a privilege, not a right. It shifts the dynamic from, "He is always there waiting for me," to, "I hope I can see him." That shift is where desire lives. Desire is the longing to bridge a gap. If there is no gap, there is no desire. This is the hard truth. Humans crave what they cannot fully control. We are hunters by nature. If the prey walks into the cage and locks the door itself, the hunter loses interest. The thrill is in the competence of the target. When you demonstrate that you are emotionally autonomous, that you can survive and thrive without her validation, you become a challenge, you become a peer, you become someone worth earning. But here is where we must apply the ethical lens, or we risk becoming monsters. There is a danger in this philosophy. If you use these concepts, mystery, scarcity, silence, solely to trap someone, you will eventually trap yourself. You will build a relationship based on anxiety, where you are constantly performing the role of the aloof alpha, terrified that if you drop the mask, she will see the scared boy underneath. That is a prison. The goal is not to act like a man of value. The goal is to be a man of value.
The reason you don't answer the phone instantly should be because you are genuinely building something important, not because you are manipulating a response time. The reason you don't share every insecurity should be because you have the emotional maturity to process your own feelings, not because you are hiding a trauma. The reason you are willing to walk away should be because you have high standards for how you are treated, not because you use abandonment to terrify her into submission. Do you see the difference? One is a trick, the other is a standard of living. This brings us to the fear of loss. It is a dark psychological driver, but undeniable. We take for granted that which is guaranteed. If a woman feels that no matter how she behaves, no matter how disrespectful or indifferent she becomes, you will still be there offering flowers and validation, she will lose respect for you. It is inevitable. Respect is the bedrock of attraction. You cannot desire someone you pity.
The experiment requires you to become comfortable with the idea of being lost. You must cultivate a mindset that says, I want you, but I do not need you. This is not arrogance. It is the ultimate form of self-love. It means your identity is not outsourced to another person. When she realizes that you have a spine, that you have boundaries, and that you are capable of withdrawing your attention if it is not reciprocated, the dynamic changes instantly. She stops viewing you as a fan and starts viewing you as a man. The anxiety she feels, that slight friction of, could I lose him, is the spark that keeps the flame alive. It forces her to invest. It forces her to bring her best self to the table, just as you are bringing yours. It creates a relationship of two sovereigns rather than a relationship of a master and a servant. Applying this in real life is terrifying at first. It feels counterintuitive. Your instinct will scream at you to fix, to chase, to explain. You will feel the urge to send that double text, to apologize for having a boundary, to fill the silence with nervous chatter. Resist it. Sit in that discomfort. That discomfort is the feeling of you growing a backbone. When you hold your tongue, when you focus on your work instead of your phone, when you keep your weekend plans for yourself, you are retraining the world on how to treat you. You are signaling that you are the main character of your own life. This affects more than just romance. It transforms how you are seen in business, in friendship, and in society. The man who is comfortable in silence is viewed as intelligent. The man who is not easily accessible is viewed as important. The man who does not seek approval is viewed as a leader. So the experiment is this: stop trying to win her. Start trying to win yourself. Construct a life so compelling, so demanding of your focus, that your attention becomes naturally scarce. Cultivate an inner world so rich that you don't need to broadcast every detail to feel real. Develop a sense of self-worth so solid that you do not need to trade your dignity for affection. When you do this, you stop chasing. You simply exist in your orbit. And just like a planet with immense gravity, you will find that others are drawn into your sphere, not because you begged them, but because you are the most solid thing in their universe. In the end, this isn't about games. It isn't about who cares less. It is about who can stand on their own 2 feet. The man who is whole on his own is the only man capable of a real relationship, because he is entering it out of choice, not out of desperation. Remember this: in the grand negotiation of life and love, the person who is most willing to walk away holds the power. But the goal isn't to walk away. The goal is to be the kind of man who never has to, because his value is undeniable. Be the man who is worth conquering.
Be the mystery that is worth solving. Be the prize, not the contestant.